Hey, it's episode 56, and quite a surprise here. Beef, can you hear me by any chance?
I hear you perfectly. It's amazing when you switch computers. You have to turn off the mute button and the mute microphone button.
Well, I figured it out because I saw you were on mute down below, and I tried to unmute you, and it said, you cannot unmute a moron who has muted himself.
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense.
Well, this is kind of interesting. We were going to bring Palk in because Casey was, being Michael Dell over there in West Orange, New Jersey. But here's our guest tonight. We're going to bring him in a few minutes, but Michael Palkovic, 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin. I was corrected on the name earlier. Sorry about that, but you said it's not your first time.
It won't be the last.
All right, this is the part of the show where Casey and I usually chit-chat about something that's totally unrelated to the world in general.
Usually the weather.
The weather. How's your weather, Casey?
Usually. It's about 850,000 degrees here in I'm actually in Florham Park, New Jersey.
Oh.
Sounds fancy. It's not, but it's nice. It's in a good spot. But yeah, it's extremely hot outside, and other than that, we're doing great.
Sounds cool. Hey, Yankees Astros Saturday. Now, both of you guys are Yankee fans. I'm going to see the Yankees and the Astros. And here's the question. You guys were all over the Astros for cheating, but Garrett Cole, struggling a little bit since the rules changed, What's up with that?
Palk, go ahead, because I'm pleading the fifth.
I don't know.
Well,
cheating in baseball has been going on for forever, and I don't know. I guess I'd rather have him doing that than whatever Trevor Bauer is doing or whatever these other guys are doing. So yeah. I'll take it.
That's a great point. And my 2 cents on it is that it's been an unwritten rule forever, right? And for some reason, Cowboy Joe West decided one time to check the guy on the Cardinals and found a little sticky stuff. And so apparently everyone was doing it. So if everyone's doing it with the spider tack nonsense, then why is it become an issue? I know this isn't a baseball show, but keep it quiet, keep it hush hush. But because there was, chicks dig the long ball, that old phrase back in the old slogan in commercials, and it wasn't happening much this year. 7, 8, 9 no hitters in the first 2 months of the season. I think that's probably what did it, right? Something had to give with the offenses. And so this is it.
I don't know why it got brought up. We've all seen the movie Major League. That was made in the late 80s. And the aging pitcher had Crisco and this and that over his body. But Ed Harris.
Hey,
it doesn't it was going on to do whatever you could to the ball within, I guess, reason. And now all of a sudden the numbers weren't what the MLB wanted, so now they got to come around the back and find a way to get the numbers to where they need them to be in statistically. And
well, I'll say this is I'm having a hard time explaining to my kid about the right way to cheat and the wrong way to cheat. That's all I'll say. They're all cheating, and you guys are going to have to face that too when your kid gets to be 14 and figures out that, hey, Dad, they're saying we're cheaters, but well, why are they allowed to cheat and we're not? I mean, few trash cans never hurt anybody. So that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Got to rub some snot in the ball. You rub some snot.
A little jalapeno pepper.
No doubt. Hey, Beef, the Elite 11 was last weekend, and my boy, Cade Klubnik, Austin, Texas, MVP. And there's rumors he might get a 5th star.
Marty, no, I'm good. Oh, I thought you were frozen. You were so good at that, and I was so good at freezing last week. I figured I was frozen again. Yeah, I loved it. I got to see some highlights just based on in Twitter and other social medias. He looked good, man. He was the way he was taking some coaching too. Of course, he's a Clemson guy, right? And we're Clemson guys. Well, 2 of us are Clemson guys, so you get excited about him. It also kind of alleviates some of that where you missed on a guy. You miss on the kid that goes to Alabama, and you feel like the Clemson folk felt like maybe this Klubnik kid was the fallback option. But to see him go out and show out in the Elite 11 and come home with the MVP is got to make some Clemson folks feel pretty happy.
Yeah, it's really weird that you missed out on the guy you wanted, yet the guy that was your quote fallback ends up outperforming him. On TV, he outperformed Quinn Ewers in the state championship game. It wasn't even close. Does that mean he'll be a better college quarterback? Absolutely not. Those guys that evaluate those quarterbacks are in their job for a reason. So we'll see how it works out.
We said it last week, Marty. It's the underwear Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. But you take some skill out of it. It obviously takes skill to make some of these throws, but some of them are arcade game throws that they're making these kids make. Yeah.
All right. Recruiting. Next up, let's talk about, we talked last week about JTT because I couldn't say his name, JT Tuimoloau. He ended up going to Ohio State, closing out the 2021 class. Ohio State is on fire, just kicking everybody's butt in the recruiting game. I'm not frozen.
They really are. The rich keep getting richer. Heck, they got a guy in June that they should have signed in February during signing day. That, it's just another slap in the face that they can go out and get this number 1 overall, number 3 composite ranked kid in June. So probably had some schoolwork to take care of. Maybe, I don't know the story behind them, but yeah, they just keep getting another guy.
Keep getting him. And the final piece of the recruiting, because we won't spend the most of our time tonight with Palk on Notre Dame. Rumor has it he has a few things to say. He's from Jersey like you, so, he can't keep you guys quiet. Jeremiah Alexander last weekend, kind of thought maybe he was trending towards Clemson. Comes out all of a sudden that's not the case, and it looks like Clemson's going to miss on another high-ranked recruit. This one's going to Alabama. Obviously makes sense. He's from Alabaster, Alabama. He was previously committed to Alabama. Clemson folks had high hopes for Alexander, and it turns out that may not be the case.
Yeah, just, it's one of these things again. The kids are 17, 18 years old. They're highly susceptible to getting swayed and played and wined and dined and every other 5-letter words that rhyme with those. I mean, I really truly believe that that's probably what it came down to. You can have all of your family stay at home just about to play at Alabama, play at a high level. And apparently what they're using against Clemson is that there's no space for some of for the interior defensive line or actually defensive line as a whole going into the next couple of years because of how they recruited recently. Especially with Brzee and Miles Murphy and Capehart and guys that they got this year. It seems like loaded. So I think Clemson's having that used against them a little bit. And that Alabama probably smartly played it up and they threw Nick Saban at them. And it's tough for a kid from Alabama to leave the state of Alabama. I think Clemson gave it a good run, but sometimes you tip the cap and you keep moving.
But help me, is the defensive line not stacked at Alabama? Or are they running out 2 stars out there? I mean, what the heck?
That's what I wanted to do a little research on what they had because I've heard this rumor. No, I've heard this. Yeah, I know we don't do that here, but I've heard the rumor that that's what's being used against Clemson, especially with Travis Shaw at North Carolina and other places. They're saying that there's just not room for them. New guys coming in to start right away. But you're right. I don't know. You wouldn't think that at Alabama, but something swayed him. But he's 18, so it's like you have to. The wind blows, and I thought I wanted to go someplace else.
Yeah, probably sounded good when he was in Clemson and, got back home to Alabama and it didn't sound so good anymore. So I do. Out of all the 3 or 4 highly ranked guys that Clemson has missed on, he's the one I understand the most, right? I mean, From Alabama, grew up in Alabama, makes perfect sense. All right, our guest today, Mike Palkovic with an S, I was told this afternoon, of the 5 Nothin 100 Nothin Podcast. Palk, I apologize for getting your name wrong. I couldn't find it anywhere in your bio and your podcast site on iTunes. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I kind of understand it. Yeah, because everybody mispronounces it, right? So I apologize, but welcome in. Glad to have you. We've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks, and we're going to talk Notre Dame today.
Yeah, well, one thing you guys mentioned that I don't know what the problem is. Notre Dame went into Ohio State's backyard and got a 5-star defensive end. What happened? Brennan Vernon. It doesn't seem to be a problem.
It's not that difficult. Is that what you're saying?
For one guy. For one guy. Yeah. Hey,
I'll take it,
it's a 5-star, and we are thrilled to pieces because I don't remember the last 5-star, like legit 5-star.
Well, Clemson's got one from Ohio too, but an offensive lineman nonetheless, and put one in the from Ohio in the NFL. So we still got you there, bud.
And that's class of 23. But I have to, and I said this on Twitter. I have to assume Marcus Freeman is playing a much. You lose me?
No, we got you.
Much larger role. Hold on.
Well, I forgot to tell you this.
Did you guys lose me for a second?
No, we got you.
Okay.
We forgot to tell you up front in the rules. This is a Marcus Freeman free zone. We call it.
How am I going to say Freeman factor over and over and over again?
That's what we're worried about, by the way.
but no, sorry, the sound went out on me. But no, it's a 23 guy. But I imagine Freeman, when he was at Cincinnati, was probably in this kid's ear already. And then he went from Cincinnati to Notre Dame. And if Freeman had the impact on him when he was just at Cincinnati, I don't know the ins and outs because, like you said, the wind blows and anything can happen. But I just find it really odd. I know we'll get into some of the details, but and maybe odd's not the right word, but very I don't want to use the I word. Very intriguing that Freeman comes in and all of a sudden recruiting is harder than it's been in years at Notre Dame. And then I saw something about Brian Kelly is now more involved than he's ever been and this and that, and everybody's praising him. Well, hang on. And it's insiders. Let's ask the hard question. Why now? Did you really need the young buck to come in that was your motivation? You should be motivated on your own. But I get it because it's like anything. If you get comfortable, he's going on year 11 or 12. You get so comfortable doing the same. Give me a reason to change. And, obviously Marcus Freeman has. And like I said on my show briefly yesterday, I hate to harp on it, but I can't find the only common denominator or different denominator is Marcus Freeman. Everything else is pretty much the same. So you tell me. I mean, it seems like simple math. He came in, all of a sudden we're getting, these 4-star guys coming in next year, like Tyson Ford and Tua Halamaka, which sounds like the Christmas Vacation Christmas song. Meliki Maka. But we got these big dudes coming in. The unfortunate thing is it seems to be mostly defensive, which it's fine. It's good. We've built a defensive mindset from Diaco to Lee to now Freeman, but eventually we got to score points. You know that. You witnessed it when they played us.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about that for a second. Okay. Notre Dame is currently they're 9th in 2021, currently 3rd ranked in 2022, and it's early, but they're 3rd in 2023. The thing I wanted to talk about was the 2021 class. Notre Dame has been dinged for not being very explosive, but that 2021 class, I did my research, Palk, has a quarterback who's a top 10, I think, at that position, and number 70 overall. This is 247 we're talking here. And they have 2 receivers right around the top 100-ish range. So they are showing some explosiveness, or at least they've recruited that explosiveness for the 2021 class. Are these guys going to see the field this year? Is Notre Dame going to be more explosive in 2021 than they have been in recent previous seasons?
I don't think so. I really don't. It's not because if Buckner plays, and that's the quarterback, Buckner. One of 2 things has happened. One is he's played so immensely well in practice through X number of games and leading into the season that there's no choice but to put him on the field. The other reason is we've already lost 2-3 games and the season's in the shitter or the crapper. Sorry, the season's done, and so I hate to say it, but I almost don't want to see him play this year because if he plays, I feel like we're not winning games, only because we have seen Jack Cohn and he seems to be a formidable quarterback, and I think it would be a good transition because he can't move. So he's going to have to throw the ball. I mean, he's elusive enough. We saw a little bit of that in the spring game. He's elusive enough, but he's not Ian Book at all. Beef, you told me this 1,000 times. He's not Ian Book. So he's going to have to throw the ball. Now, as far as the explosiveness, it's potentially there. We still got the same 2 running backs, Chris Tyree, he's like a little widget, man. You could put him kind of in a little jet sweep kind of thing in the slot as a receiver, just straight up in the backfield. But obviously you got the bruiser Kyron Williams. So that tandem is going to be really good. And then we have Sebo Flemister, and the running back depth is actually pretty solid right now. But the issue, I think, is going to be receiver, and not because of potential talent. It's lack of experience. Braden Lindsey and Kevin Austin are supposed to be our 2 number 1 receivers. Austin hasn't played in some time because he broke his foot, then tried to come back and re-broke his foot. Braden Lindsey, who's supposed to have world-class track speed, hasn't been on the field enough to really show it. When he has it shown, he scored on a reverse against USC. He's been open deep several times. But hamstrings and ankles, it's a list of injuries. So with that in mind, I want to say yes, but I don't believe so because Cone being new, Lindsey and Austin kind of being eased back into full speed contact, playing football, not just practice, I bet you're not going to see what the potential of Notre Dame's offense is until game 5. Now, with that in mind, you hope we haven't lost a game along the way to open the season at Florida State or Cincinnati, or I think game 5 is Wisconsin. So that's my concern, but the potential's there because we got the running backs, we got Michael Mayer, and we've got veteran receivers that have talent. But the top 3 guys are Avery Davis is going to be the 3rd. He's experienced, although he's played every position on the field. He came in as a quarterback, moved to running back, went to DB, now he's a receiver. So he's been all over the place. And then Lawrence Keys was out half the season last year. So people want to say it's a weak spot. It's just there's too many unknowns. The talent is there.
I got a question for you. I'll follow it. I'll follow it up and kind of rub salt in the wound, if you will, a little bit. I think what you're saying basically is the unknown really is that quarterback, right? Because Ian Book was able to mask a lot of the issues, if there were issues, or also on the flip side, he didn't really allow the wide receiver to even, because he was so good at and elusive, it feels like you don't know necessarily what you have as a sure thing at receiver, because he extended plays so much, but then he would run the ball 90% of the time. In my experience of watching him, I know you're going to tell me I'm completely wrong, and that's okay. But he masked a lot of the deficiency if there was there. So I think some of the narrative that I've seen about Notre Dame and at the wide receiver position, I don't think is necessarily fair. And that's probably the only time you're ever going to hear me say something positive about Notre Dame. But I apologize for that. But I think it's because it's that fear of the unknown. Now, having Cone back there or Buckner back there, I think you guys as Notre Dame fans and podcasters and beat writers are thinking like you don't, once again, it's fear of the unknown, right? You don't know what you have necessarily. You saw a little bit in the spring game. I think more of not that Jack Cone is a statue necessarily, but he's not Ian Book. And that's my phrase again, right? Not a lot of people are Ian Book in the way that they could extend plays. I know that's long-winded, surprisingly enough. But what I guess my question is then, do you think that I'm right? Am I right, Palk?
You're not wrong, because all last season I would post stuff on social media where I'm screenshotting the play halfway through, and I don't know what Ian Book was seeing or not seeing, but everybody, he didn't throw any interceptions. Well, it was damn near impossible for him to throw interceptions because he took 0 chances, and the deep ball is a chance throw. It's what it is. Passes 15, 20 yards plus downfield are riskier throws than all the throws he was hitting on. And I think Cone will take those risks. So yeah, when you're watching the game, it looks like he's trying to run, and then you see a replay, you're like, what was he seeing? But then you're like, well, he did get 8 yards on the rush, yeah, but he missed the guy 25 yards downfield.
Running wide open.
That's what, yeah, and that's why we have a 10-minute drive and get 3 points. Well, that was fantastic, and we did it twice against Clemson, and I said it out loud. I said, there goes the ball game in the ACC championship. The minute we went down the field twice, took all that time and did nothing with the football. And during that, I don't remember the specifics, but I'm sure I saw something that there was an opportunity missed. In fact, I know there was. Just today, somebody posted about Kyron Williams picking up a block in the ACC championship game, and Book stepped up and hit Tommy Tremble on an out route. At the same time, my hands are going crazy. Holy smokes, it goes this way. But Tremble's going out, and right behind him, dragging across the field, is Javon McKinley by himself, and Book never saw him. Look, he got the 13-yard out to Tremble. I'm like, yeah, and 22 yards downfield was McKinley, who, if he catches it and just makes a beeline to the sideline and up, it's a touchdown.
Hey, brother, we've been there before, It hasn't always been 14-1 and 13-2 or whatever for Clemson. We've certainly been there before. You mentioned the schedule earlier, so let me talk about that schedule.
11-1. What do you want to know about it?
We're coming. That's one of the questions I have. September 5th at Florida State. The 25th play Wisconsin at Soldier Field. That's an interesting tilt. Oh, said the word, $31. Then on 10-2 is Cincinnati. It's back-to-back with Wisconsin. I know you laugh at Cincinnati. 10-23 Southern Cal, and then 10-30 North Carolina, which is back-to-back with Southern Cal. Now, both of those games, it looks like all three, the Cincinnati, Southern Cal, and North Carolina are all at Notre Dame. FPI, now I bring this up because you had a little fit on social media about this. FPI projects 8-3 or 8.3 and 3.7, basically 8 wins. SP Plus projects 7-5. And of course, what really got to you was in a year, quote, in a year with seemingly everyone returns their starting quarterback and 80% more of last year's production, the Fighting Irish have to replace starting quarterback Ian Book and their top 2 wide receivers, 4 all ACC offensive linemen, and stars at defensive end, outside linebacker, cornerback, and strong safety. That's Bill Connolly. Now, I heard some pushback, or read some pushback from Notre Dame fans about the star label in the defensive backfield. But besides all that, earlier in the year, I pointed out to you the production that Notre Dame has returning, or lack thereof. I think they were 117th, out of 127 teams or so. You still believe 11-1? That's my question.
Yeah. Well, because here's the deal: that whole returning production is fact. It's fact. But here's the deal: it's not like Ian Book is leaving, and then we have to go to Buckner or Pine or somebody who's never played a snap of Division I football. We're getting a quarterback that has proven he can do it at the highest level. A guy played in a Rose Bowl for Wisconsin, and not just some other guy. He was the quarterback. So, okay, we're losing Book, but we're getting the perfect, kind of bridge to the next guy. And then the receiving, do you realize if Lindsey and Austin are healthy, Skowronek and McKinley are probably not playing in what capacity they played? Skowronek, I hate to say it, but he needs to write a thank you card to Austin every chance he gets for being injured, because Skowronek doesn't get drafted by, I think it was the Rams, if Austin's not hurt. Because if Austin is healthy, Skowronek's just not on the field in the same way. And McKinley got signed by the Lions. I feel like he owes Lindsey a little something, because again, those were the 1 and 2 coming into the season, and then they had to make a pivot. And Ian Book, maybe that's what it was. That he wasn't familiar with. Skowronek was a transfer, and McKinley just didn't play a ton. I don't know, but having Book was key because you had the lack of experience at the receiver position. Last year, Chris Tyree was a true freshman. Kyron Williams came onto the scene. So And then offensive line, I get it. Zeke Correll is our starting center. He ended the season as starting center because the previous starting center, Jarrett Patterson, got hurt and was done for the year. Patterson's back and probably going to play guard. Then we have I'm trying to think where Blake Fisher was ranked. I want to say he was like a top 70 player the year he's a true freshman. He's going to start. Then we got Kane Madden, who has experience. So, and he was second team All-American for Marshall. I know it's just Marshall, and then we got Josh Lugg, who kind of filled in for a lot of different guys over the last 2 seasons. So yes, it's not a lot of production, but it is experience, and I just don't see it in the way that these writers are seeing it. So yes, when you look at it on paper, Notre Dame has a better roster than I think everybody they're up against. Maybe USC, just talent-wise, in some ways, but they still got Clay Helton coaching, so we're good. we're fine.
John Chansey agrees with you. He says 11-1 in the comments, and that's the Clemson guy. Michael Hahn appears not to agree with you so much. He asked what you're bitching about.
I think he's talking to me. This is a buddy of mine. He reminds me of Palk a lot, and Palk reminds me of him a lot. So.
Oh, and yes, he has a question about the schedule.
Oh my God. Please let me go somewhere. Mr. Michael E. Hahn.
He's a Jersey guy, too.
That's good. It's going to end right there because Notre Dame gets heat for their schedule. There's such a weak schedule. The last 6 seasons, Notre Dame's average strength of schedule is 13. And we get to handpick our schedule. I can't help that USC is down and all these different teams we play are down, but at the end of the year, we're still playing on average a 13 toughest schedule. We haven't had a strength of schedule below 15, but once in the last 6 years, and it was like 26, and that brought the average down.
Now, is that 13 scheduled by FPI, the metric you just trashed? I was just wondering if you're picking and choosing which stat to use there.
Well,
hey, Beef, we got a guy here that talks more than you.
Yeah, there's no question, but he's got a lot of good stuff to say. But I'll be honest with you, that strength of schedule stuff I hate, and so like my legs are shaking right now, and I'm feeling some hot heat in my face. You know, we got South Carolina people telling us they got the number 1 ranked schedule in the country
because they play Clemson.
Right.
All right, pal. If you want to expound more on the schedule, please feel free. Here's how I look at it, though. I look at it like this. You can say, we got all these offensive linemen who going to fill in perfectly, and we got this quarterback who's going to do better. But all of those things have to happen, not just one of them. If the offensive line is not up to par, then the quarterback's not going to be as good. If the quarterback's not as good, then you're going to need a better offensive. It's all got to fit together. And I use this even with Clemson, and people are going to be surprised where I put John Chansey, for one, are going to be surprised where I put Clemson in the preseason because why? Their offensive line wasn't up to par last year. They lost the greatest running back in school history and the number 1 quarterback in college football and in the NFL draft. And do they have talented receivers? Sure, but there's a question: can any of them stay healthy?
You and the receivers, Marty.
So my next question was your projection. You already told us 11-1.
Yeah, so 11-1, and like Chansey said, that's the game that scares me. And I said in my season preview several months ago that USC is one-dimensional with Slovis. They threw for, I think it was like 319 yards a game or something like that, but only ran for 97 yards per game. But the problem is Notre Dame is, I'm hoping by, I think it's game 8, we play their 7 or 8, that our secondary has it figured out. But that's an area where they're older guys, but they haven't been on the field. The only 2 guys coming back that have been on the field are Kyle Hamilton, which is a great person to have on the field, and Clarence Lewis, who was a true freshman last year. So the thing that worries me about USC is that one dimension could beat us by itself because our strength is the front seven. So they're not going to be able to run the ball. We got so much returning production coming on that front seven that I don't see them running the ball. So they're going to turn to the pass, and that could be an area of concern. So I do think the one is probably going to be USC. I've got it either Wisconsin or USC. And I'm thinking USC just because it's coming on the back of Wisconsin, then Cincinnati, and then I wrote down at Virginia Tech. Watch out for Metallica, and then USC. So Wisconsin's on the front end, so I feel like Notre Dame will be ready for that, and Jack Cohn has some little motivation there. It's in Chicago, so there's no real crowd disadvantage or advantage, and I think on paper Notre Dame is stronger. Graham Mertz looked great against, I think it was Illinois. After that, I think he was 1 to 2 touchdown interception ratio. So,
well, I think you said it, Palk, best with being one dimension. What's Wisconsin perennially known for, right? They're known to run the ball. And where is Notre Dame's strength on defense going to be? The front seven. On paper, everyone healthy. So I see that strength versus strength. So Mertz is going to have to throw the ball, and it didn't show other than that one game last season that he is capable.
Against the weakest opponent they had. So, I mean, what does that say? But I'll just run through at Florida State, a win. I don't think they're going to – I'm glad I'm not playing Florida State game 7, 8, or 9 because they brought in a lot of talent, and I think Norvell is a good coach. But I think game 1's the time to get them because they're not going to have their stuff figured out. It's a good time to catch them. So at Florida State win, Toledo win, Purdue win, Wisconsin – that's a toss-up. I'm calling that a win because of the timing. Cincinnati, I don't buy it. We took Freeman. I just don't see Cincinnati. Desmond Ridder looks nice and whatnot, but he struggled against the better teams in the American Athletic. They had to replace two offensive tackles. Again, our strength is our defensive line. Then you go at Virginia Tech. By the way, we're a 5.5 point favorite at this point, or at least a few weeks ago. Go bet that 5.5 points. Why? Because they play loud music. Like seriously, I just don't. And Fuente is bringing the team in the wrong direction. USC, I'm saying that might be our loss. It might be our loss. So it's at home. I don't know because we haven't lost. I know I'm getting there. We haven't lost at home in a while. But the game everybody seems to be big on as far as Notre Dame because it does come at the end of this run.
Don't do it.
North Carolina. Well, I don't get the hype. I will never get the hype. I'm not feeling. I don't know. Like listen to my podcast. Go find my episode because I'm not going to do it again. But I went off on this whole thing. I don't know how you lose 2 NFL receivers, bring back a crappy offensive line.
You're saying that about North Carolina, yet Notre Dame just lost 4/5 of their offense, and they're going to be 11-1.
But hold on. But I'm saying it because Notre Dame's better players should have been on the field.
I think
North Carolina's best players were on the field. Notre Dame's going to put better players on the field at receiver.
That's what you believe. Okay.
Yeah, I heard you, boy. I know where you're at on this. I just don't see how we beat them 31-17 in Chapel Hill, and we shut them out for 3 straight quarters, and they're going to bring back what I'm not disagreeing with you. I think you probably beat North Carolina. I'm with you on North Carolina being overhyped. That's not my point. My point is kind of just a whole general picture of 11-1. That's difficult to do. Yeah. But and then it's Navy, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Stanford. So I mean the games we have to worry about are Wisconsin, Cincinnati, USC, and North Carolina. And only 2 of them really worry me. I'm not sold on North Carolina. I won't ever be. And then Cincinnati they look good in the American Athletic. Notre Dame, and I know as much as you guys don't like Notre Dame, but you like me, so that's good. you can't deny that Notre Dame is probably a top 5 program over the last 4 or 5 years. Cincinnati is not. So if you're saying it's going to be a close game, you're probably going to pick the team that's proven to have done this. And you want to talk about returning talent, Notre Dame, or production, Notre Dame, outside of, I think, one season where we went undefeated and lost to you guys in the Cotton Bowl, has ranked 80th or worse in returning production, but yet Brian Kelly has figured something out, and we're winning games. And no, it's not the schedule. We're playing legitimate opponents.
I don't agree. I don't agree with the schedule bashing either. I think it's seriously, I think it's a fine schedule. I mean, you can play worse AAC teams than Cincinnati. Casey, I believe this is the first time in 56 episodes you've had a hard time getting a word in.
Yeah, I have, but it's fine. I agree 1,000% with Chancey because I liked his. It took me a second. I mean, it was a long day today, but the Keaton Slovis line to be the number 1 quarterback taken in 2022 when everybody's darling Sam Howell is probably going to be the pick. Yeah, I know. But I'm actually in full agreement about North Carolina with Palk, and he and I actually talked about it on his podcast, which he will tout in a little bit. 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothing. I forget where I was going because I just wanted to make sure Palk got his plug. But Notre Dame, they do. I hate saying it. That's why I'm having so much trouble saying it. But they do deserve to be in that top 5, top 8 best teams in the country. And unfortunately, it's all right there for us to see. And they do have something. There's something about it. Why kids still go there, I don't know when they haven't won. But Georgia hasn't won either, and kids are still going there. So, it doesn't make sense necessarily if you have to think about it on the surface. But kids are going there, and they're right there every year.
Here, I'm really intrigued because I honestly I don't see 8-4 or 7-5. I see more like 10-2, maybe.
Yeah, I think 10-2 is the floor. I think 10-2 is the floor.
I think you just because I'm not sold on that because. And I don't know what's worse, right? 9-3, maybe. Okay, that's probably the worst that I would put it at. But you're not sure what you have a quarterback yet, so that's me from an outsider. That's not a Notre Dame guy reading Notre Dame things, listening to Notre Dame things other than your podcast every day. So I don't know, but I don't trust Jack Cohn because I haven't seen him enough, and that's me telling on myself. And I don't know what Buckner's going to be. I hope he's good for you guys so that you guys can be right there, but. At the end of the day, I'm just not sold. I'm sold on your running backs, and I know you've built, and I've told you this before, Palk, you've built enough equity at the offensive line over the course of Brian Kelly's entire tenure that you can kind of say, okay, even the guy from Marshall is still going to be something. He's going to be a plug-and-play guy. I mean, that's what you need, right? When you lose 4 guys, you need a plug-and-play. He's going to be a plug-and-play. So, I think I'm not worried from an outsider perspective about the offensive line at all. Your front seven's fine. Kyle Hamilton back there, he reminds me a lot of Isaiah Simmons, a smaller version of Isaiah Simmons. He's just always around the ball, so I trust the defense too. I don't know anything about this Freeman guy, but you guys love him. So we'll go with you. But, yeah, I think the worst that they could possibly be looking at the schedule is 9-3. Wisconsin, I think, is tough. I'm not sold on Cincinnati. I'm never sold on Cincinnati when they play somebody, and don't get me started on North Carolina.
Well, personally, I hope they crush Cincinnati and end that nonsense talk. I just think there's so many unanswered questions. For your scenario to work, everything has to go right. And look, I poked at you over the Marshall guy because what you've said is if he plays, that's the greatest thing in the world. And if he doesn't play, it's even better than the greatest thing in the world. You've made yourself. You put it out there that either way this goes, Notre Dame's great. This works out for us perfectly. And I'm older than you, Palk, and things happen, man. Things happen. So I'm even struggling. You're talking about a quarterback playing that's going to replace Ian Book, who was, can we agree, at least a good part of the glue of that team. So
100%.
He may be better in certain ways, but he may not have that same leadership capabilities. Last when DJ was playing last year for Clemson and into the offseason, I said, I'm not worried about quarterback at all. And then I started thinking, Casey got me doing this, by the way. I started thinking, well, okay, he was great last year, but there were no fans there. Would it have been the same at Notre Dame if there was 80,000 or how many, or 60, whatever you hold? Would it have been the same? What if he had to face,
Enter Sandman.
Yeah. ACDC or whatever the hell. I'm starting to worry about DJ a little bit. Not that I don't think he's good, but is he Trevor Lawrence good? In front of 80,000 fans. So I have those questions about my own team. So don't take this personally. I've been around long enough to know that if you have a question or two, it's okay, and you can kind of fill in the blanks and say he'll be good enough. But when you lost your offensive line and the glue to your team and 17 All-American defensive backs, I'd be a little bit more worried than you are.
Oh, I think, Marty, where you're coming from is being a Clemson fan. I think that's it. Like, that is the definition of being a Clemson fan. We don't have it in our history, save 7 years of it, where that Clemson has been at the top of the hill. So, but
neither does he. Neither does Notre Dame.
Well, in the 80s and when he was being brought up, absolutely they were, 80s and the early 90s.
In the 80s.
That's how old we are.
In the 80s, it's 2021.
Georgia won in 1980 and we're still hearing about it.
I was just going to say that.
We're still hearing about it.
They have that.
We won in 93 too, but whatever.
So we have found a closet Notre Dame fan here. It's John Chansey. I can say
he's
this.
My new favorite guy.
Oh, it's hilarious. Hey, Pal, go ahead.
I'm real quick. I hear everything you're saying, but honestly, if this was 4 years ago, and Beef can attest to this, and you and the few conversations we have, I try to be very objective. I'm not trying to be Golden Domer Homer guy. I try to be real. 4 years ago, I would have zero confidence that we were going to figure this out. Yeah, but the last few years, and then the addition of a guy like Marcus Freeman, who is what he's done so far has been impressive. I just feel like for me as a fan, they've earned the right and respect for me to believe, based on paper, they can go 11-1.
That's fair, and that's fair. I think that's what Casey was talking about.
Yeah.
As Clemson fans, it took us years and years and years to have any confidence that they were going to win close games. And it turns quickly, because when they start winning close games, I sat here, the North Carolina game a couple of years ago that was 21-20, 2-point conversion. I was sitting there with my son, and he said, oh no. I was like, it's all right. It's okay. They're going to stop them. They'll do it. And they did it. Now, I was lucky. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm saying there's a confidence that you gain, and I certainly understand that.
Well, it's funny where it comes full circle. I feel like Clemson's start and Notre Dame's restructuring started with that Hurricane game where we should have beat you. But Brian Kelly thought throwing the ball 30 times was the best way to go about it. But no, that was a big win. That was a big deal for Clemson.
Lots of drops.
And a fumble inside the 5.
Little known fact about that game, it only rained on Notre Dame.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that. That was interesting. I didn't know that.
There was.
That's what I heard. That's what I was there.
Going for two. Going for two.
Yeah, sorry. It was just my joke.
Didn't make it. Yeah, that's been my joke for when did it happen? 2015, 6 years now. Yeah.
Well, we had that year 2012 when the first BCS game against West Virginia I think West Virginia just scored again. They did. I'm pretty sure of it. But Clemson made a BCS bowl game, and that year they came back against a bad Maryland team, but they were down like 31-13 or something like that. Clemson came back and scored and won. They came back in another game where they were down by a ton. They had Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins and those boys. So when it was like 35-7 in the Orange Bowl, we looked at our buddies and were like, Clemson's coming back here. They did it all year. And then Taj fumbles, throws an interception. It's like 70-6. And it's like, I don't think we're going to come back to this one, guys. I'm not sure.
Not today.
But my point is, you get over the hump, whatever game it is, there's like and I'm not saying it because it's Notre Dame, but I feel like I've heard it before from Clemson fans that game was a big deal in getting Clemson going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
And once Notre Dame gets that moment, which it's becoming harder and harder because Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State keep getting further and further away.
Yeah, I think that game was part of that whole bunch. Sorry, Marty. That just that Clemson could beat a big team, and it started with LSU in the Peach Bowl a couple years earlier than that, when Les Miles surprisingly mishandled the clock. But Clemson won that game on a 4th and 16. A great play that goes down in history for Clemson fans. So yeah, that along with the Hurricane game, and there's a couple more that you just said. That's where it kind of all turned.
Well, I do want to ask you this before we let you go, Palk. The expanded playoff. You and I have went back and forth on this on text a little bit. You think it's the greatest thing ever for Notre Dame? I see and understand your point of view. You didn't?
I didn't say it was the greatest thing ever.
Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit for effect. You said it was the greatest thing ever. That's how I interpreted it. And I said it was the worst thing. It was a bad thing for Notre Dame. And the reason I said that was, well, I'll say that in a second. But I listened to Cover 3 podcast today from CBS Sports, and there was opposing views on this. I think Bud Elliott said it was a great thing for Notre Dame. They came out like bandits just for the reason you said. They're going to get a home game every year. They don't have to jack, with a neutral site game, or was it a neutral site game? Anyway, they're going to get a home game in the playoff and get all that money, and that's great. But and I forget who came back and said, I think it's a bad thing for Notre Dame. He agreed with me. This means no matter how good they are, 12-0, go undefeated, don't give up a point all year. They can't be ranked higher than 5th. And every year they're going to have to play and win 4 playoff games to win a national championship, where Clemson, Alabama, whoever may only have – Ohio State, have to include them, may only have to win 3. I shared the math with you. Just by sheer numbers, it cuts your chances in half having to win that 4th game, because obviously you're playing a really good team and you have to beat a 4th straight team in the playoffs, which nobody's done yet. Nobody's even, only half of that. 2, right? So some people agree with me. Some people agree with you. But my point is that
Am I the deciding vote?
Never. My point is that you can have the money. When it comes down to it, Notre Dame can have the money of a home playoff game. I want one less game to win a national championship. My odds are better, even if you have the better team, and I think that hurts you in the long run.
Okay, so I guess, like I said, I try to be objective in this whole thing. You're right. You're not wrong at all, because Notre Dame could set the record for number of consecutive wins in college football and not get the number 1 seed. But
or the 2 seed, or the 3 seed, or the 4 seed.
Correct. But I said this to Beef, and I've said to others. You have to be able to think of this in a big picture, because Jack Swarbrick went in there completely outnumbered, and my belief, despite one podcast I heard that was ripping him left and right, and they're like, Jack Swarbrick needs to put his foot down and tell him how it's going to be. And I'm like, I don't think it works that way. I don't think that's how it goes. As much as I'd love to think that he walks in, he whips out a big cane, a shillelagh, and says, we do it Notre Dame's way, or we're out of here. Good luck. So I think he went in knowing he's going to have to battle some things. And Notre Dame valued independence. It's pretty clear they went in valuing independence above all else. So I feel like this home game thing was maybe not part of the plan to begin with, but that was Notre Dame's angle to accept and get something out of this whole agreement, because it was going to put the conferences ahead of independence, and it was going to force Notre Dame's hand, and Notre Dame and Jack Swarbrick took the shillelagh, stuck it in the ground, and said, our independence flag is right here, and we're not going to change. So that's why I was glad to see Notre Dame while keeping independence, did find something beneficial out of this whole scenario. And then we just hope that the underdog beats the 1 seed, and then we go from there.
Well, and I see that point, but I was thinking more, of course, it's my nature. Casey knows this, numbers mathematically, and just common sense. It's harder to win 4 games than it is 3. And I could see him negotiating something like, okay, but if we beat everybody by 20 points, can we get a number 4 seed? I just think that extra game is really the killer, and nobody's really talking about it except for, it was Dennis Dodd on CBS Sports, by the way. Dennis Dodd mentioned that today, and I was like, finally, somebody agrees with me that this is not the best thing in the world for Notre Dame. I exaggerated. And now I'm going to let Casey talk. I can't believe it. Beef has had trouble getting into the conversation.
Yeah, but I had a doozy before with my original question, right? When I first started, I was so flustered about it. I think the expanded playoff is what it is, but I think it has to happen first, right? I think Notre Dame has to, or UMass or Liberty has to go undefeated first before.
BYU.
That's right. Before that becomes part of the equation. I know odds are good. It's probably Notre Dame over those other ones, New Mexico State, but I think it has to happen. It's not going to be one of those things like, 8 games in, Notre Dame's 8-0. They're ranked number 1 in the country, haven't let anybody score all year long, just completely killing people. They're not going to have the conversation during the middle of the year. It's going to happen, and then maybe at the end of that, they have to throw in, hey, if something like this caveat, if something like this were to ever happen again, they need to cut in line and get in front where they're rightfully deserved.
Well, and this is not even set in stone yet, right? This is a suggestion. They don't even know when it's going to start and if it's going to be 12. This is just their suggestion. I don't even know what the right term is. This is what they have said. Hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you guys think? It's not set in stone.
Right.
I heard today in that same podcast, they don't know if they're going to start this in 2023 or 2026 or if it's all going to change, but it's just what it is right now.
Even as an undefeated, Notre Dame was barely a 3 and a 4, and
it's because of the schedule.
You're right. Notre Dame never, with 1 loss, I'm not sure they get in. And people are saying, "Oh, they would have gotten in. Who cares about that 13th data point?" Well, kind of to your point, Beef, we never had the opportunity to see it. We don't know if Notre Dame with 1 loss without the championship game could have gotten in. I mean, there was one. It was a 2017. We were kind of in that trajectory, then got completely housed by the turnover chain. But to your point, yeah, it almost like until it happens, I think we got the 5, okay. But then the minute we do play like, say, Alabama did or LSU did in 2019, then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, hold on, let's change this all up.
Yeah.
But
that's the clout Notre Dame has. But it has to. I truly believe it. It's something like that. If it goes in this way, something like that has to happen before they even talk about it.
Hey, last thing I want to talk to you about, Palk, was name, image, and likeness real briefly. I mean, I know that's a challenge for the New Jersey boys, but the NIL, good thing for Notre Dame. I'm kind of sitting back. At first, I thought it was the worst thing in the world, and then I'm like, okay, you're being an old dude, right? And I was like, it's not the worst thing in the world. I don't even know if people are going to care about it. A lot of young people, and I don't mean Beef and you. I know you're younger than both of us. But a lot of people in their 20s think it's the greatest thing in the world. Here I go again, the greatest thing in the world. Maybe that should be my new veterans donation saying. It's this big deal. I think it's not going to be much at the end of the day because most guys aren't DJ Uyunglele or on that level, and they're going to be making $50 from a moving company like half of the Clemson team is. So your take on the NIL stuff?
For Notre Dame, I think it's huge because one of the challenges Notre Dame faces is being in South Bend, Indiana. You got to find a draw. And something Notre Dame did last year was those billboards. And it's kind of I'm not a cocky person. I'm not a mouth runner. But those billboards all across the country, mind you, should have just had hashtag we're Notre Dame and you're not, because they put it in every city. Kyron Williams in St. Louis I'm from St. Louis. I chose Notre Dame. The Amendola brothers in New Jersey. I think they put, I don't know if it was on the Turnpike or they don't put any billboards on the Garden State Parkway, so it was on Turnpike. We're from New Jersey and we chose Notre Dame. It was all across the country. And, you get little things like that because Notre Dame does have some financial benefits that not every college has, and take advantage of those. So if you want to have the opportunity to get in with something like that, as well as the alumni that have money and are willing to put it into the university, not in the way UT does, in a very constructive way, you can get your name out there, and you have to accept it, though. That's key. You have to be able to accept it because, some of these guys may not want that attention, so maybe they shy away. So it could go both ways. It could be like, well, yeah, I don't want the attention that, because some schools might be giving it to you whether you want it or not, whereas other places you have to put in the effort and create a logo and all this kind of stuff. But I'm excited for it. I think it's awesome. And maybe because my favorite player is known by a nickname and not his real name, is the Rocket. I mean, if NIL existed in the late 80s, early 90s, I don't know how many pieces of Rocket merchandise I'd own. I'd probably have a hat shaped like a rocket. I don't know, with number 25 on the side. So I think it's a huge opportunity for these kids. College football has become such a good money pit in terms of what we have access to and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, allowing the players to give back, and because they can't get jobs. D1 is a job. Playing D1 football is a job. Playing and going to school, all that. So the opportunity to earn a few bucks is cool. I don't know if I'm paying for a cameo, so for one of my players to say hi, but it's cool that they have the opportunity to do that. And, real quick, Spencer Rattler probably is the coolest logo we're ever going to see because his last name is Rattler. But, I think that's going to be fun. I think that's going to be fun seeing what these kids come up with for their own name, image, likeness, and use themselves to market it. If they're a marketing major, just take that after football and, run with it.
Well, I can't wait to see Marty with his Spencer Rattler shirt here on the show in the next couple of weeks. I guarantee it's coming. If it doesn't, then I'm sending him one. How about that?
Medium with the guns. Hey, Clemson today announced they're building a whole building or part of a building to teach these guys about logos and their own brand, right? And it's a smart thing to do. Or you could be Miami and have some millionaire pay everybody on the team $500. Well, that may work. I don't know. Maybe it will work. I just don't think it's going to be the big as deal as everybody thinks. Now, I'm not 20. I'm not out buying it. I might buy a Spencer Rattler t-shirt for sure. But I'm not out buying all the gear that you would have bought. Now, I might have when I was 20, so there's the difference. I'm the old dude in the crowd who's a grumpy guy, who's the get off my lawn guy.
How awkward would it be if you're walking into a class and you have Justin Ross, who also is doing a clothing line at Clemson, the wide receiver, and you have a Justin Ross jersey shirt on with his and there's Justin Ross next to you. Like, I could see it in the stadium where he's not going to see you, but you're walking across by the library, by the reflection pond, and there's Justin Ross, and here's big doofy Beef walking by with his Justin Ross jersey. I mean, it's just, I don't know how many students are going to be buying this stuff, but God bless them. I talked to one of our friends of the show last night. I won't mention his name or her name. Oh, wait, no, we only have men.
He's a cross-dresser?
He said that his opinion is it feels like it needs to be said to tell everyone to chill out about the NIL. And I responded with, it feels like it's the shiny new toy. So everybody's talking about it. Everything that possibly comes out is you're hearing about. I think it's going to settle down as soon as everything gets figured out. And it's going to be a non sequitur kind of. Non sequitur is the wrong wording, but you know what I mean. It's going to be a non-issue. I don't think it's going to cause kids to choose one place or another. I really, really don't.
That's my overriding thing is Alabama isn't getting the top 10 quarterbacks because they can pay them all, $100,000. They're going to go somewhere where they can play. They might get the top 3, but they're not getting the top 10. like that was in that podcast too, and that was my overriding thought of it all. You're not going to see the top 9 running backs go to Georgia. Oh, wait a second. You're going to, but you know what I'm saying. The name, it's not going to be because of name, image, and likeness. Now, maybe a recruit here or there does choose a school because they offer something that another school doesn't. But like they said on that podcast, the top 10 quarterbacks aren't going to go to Alabama because they want to play. I mean, their brand is no good if they're not playing in the NFL for all intents and purposes, right? They'll make them a few dollars in college, but when that's done, if they, are 1 for 2 against the Citadel for 72 yards and a touchdown, it doesn't mean squat long term. You got to get on the field. And by the way, pal, I want you to know that I got 2 bets with the Book of Beef on Heisman Trophy, and this is the most unhomerish thing I ever did. One of them's on Spencer Rattler. I bet on him. So I'm getting the dang T-shirt.
There's real money in this phone right here. Real live money.
3 large, right? $3, Casey.
I think you might have went 3 for Rattler, but you went 1 for Uyunglele.
What are you gonna do when he moves?
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
He's from Jersey. He's got a guy.
I got it.
Oh, Michael Palkovic. Pal, it was so good to have you on. A lot of fun to hear you just tell us how Notre Dame's going to win the national championship. Even though they lost 98% of their production. I'm making that number up. No, it was a lot of fun to talk to you, Pal. We would like to have you on back during the season to reevaluate. And your podcast, tell us about your podcast.
Yes. Real quick, Beef, thank you for the shirt.
Got it. Happy birthday.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Yeah, did you read Tailgate Like a Champion?
On the back is
victory?
better.
Yeah. I don't know if you can. Am I
It
good?
says, raise your hand if you need a beer and touchdown Jesus son. Get this guy too.
Beautiful.
It's all about winning. If we can't win on the field, we're gonna win in the parking lot. So my podcast, 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin, because I am 5 foot. I'm 5'6", 155. I'm the definition of 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin. But I get excited as they reference. I got a little excited here, but I'm having fun just being me, being a Notre Dame fan since I was out of the womb. And when the season starts, guys, definitely tune in. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna rip the people who need to be ripped, and I'm gonna cheer for the people who need to be cheered for.
Well, this is all in fun. You take it with when I come back at you, take it all in fun, all in jest. Believe me, it hasn't always been 14-1 and 15-0 for Clemson. As Casey referred to the West Virginia game that made me rethink my love of college football. There were many of those over the years, and it took. When Clemson won the national championship in 2016. I ran around the house trying to wake everybody up, and I said, this may never happen again in my lifetime. And then they won again 2 years later, and my wife said, well, that's a dumb argument. They just did it a couple of years ago. But I can't get that through to non-college football fans enough, that rarefied atmosphere. I don't hate Notre Dame as much as Casey does, and I don't love them as much as you do. So I'm somewhere in the middle here, the 2 Jersey guys. So we appreciate your time. I know you got 114 kids to tend to.
I do. And we're trying to move in the next 5 days. So
you're welcome to come back anytime, and we'll certainly talk to you during the season.
Cool. Did I make this the longest Sluggo episode ever?
It's close. If not,
we're getting there.
That was not the goal, but I knew with me and Casey it might have been.
At about the 24-minute mark, I'm like, wow, this is going to be 35 minutes with 2 of the longest-winded people on the planet.
What do you mean, you and Casey? It was just you.
Hey, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin. Check it out anywhere you find your podcast.
It's also on 7newsreserve.com. Check it out. We got you up there, pal.
Right.
Have a good evening, bud.
Thank you, pal.
Thank you.
There. All right. A lot of fun, boy. Hey, Casey, I thought you talked a lot, but wow, Palk is he loves Notre Dame for sure.
He's passionate. He's very knowledgeable. He knows his stuff. It's a good podcast. It bounces all over the place, kind of like me. So I like it a lot. And I'm not as negative on Notre Dame as I used to be. because of the friendship that he and I have formed.
Well, I figured out. Dang, I lost my train of thought. I didn't figure out anything, obviously. I figured out about. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I figured out about 2 minutes into him talking how he is able to do a podcast all by himself. And we mentioned that when we mentioned 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin, Michael Palkovic's great podcast that you can find it on seldommuserve.com. Also over there, our friend of the show, John Chansey, wrote an article, on Paul Feinbaum and Ric Flair, how they're the heels, which one's the better heel. Now, that probably goes above your head because you're a little bit younger than I am, but I knew. And Chansey and I were going back and forth on the text machine about the great wrestlers from the 80s, the Rock and Roll Express and all those guys. So we had a lot of fun with that. I've been promising a story for 112 years now about my take on replay. I'm trying to save it till we get a little more traffic, like closer to the season. You know how that goes. So Chansey's got something else, and he's working on a great story, the ultimate tour around college football about breweries. So a 3-parter. Can you believe that? 3 parts. I can't even put 3 sentences together. That's what's happened. Go ahead.
He can write, man. His stories have been great. I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I don't know. I guess because I was busy today and yesterday, like crazy busy, that I didn't realize that the Flair and Feinbaum was him. So I'll definitely click on it tonight before I go night and check it out. But yeah, he's a lot of fun, man. That's a good get for you. I hope he's getting paid a ton of money.
He is. Everything I earn, I'm turning it over straight to him. That's what's happening on seldommuserve.com. Beef, what the heck is going on in the chopping beef?
We'll be back again tomorrow night, live from Mom's Basement with The Boys Are Back. JJ's actually live on location tonight at the Stanley Cup Final, so I'm sure we're going to have some stories. I'm sure he's not imbibing in excessive amounts of Jack Daniels at all. So we'll check it out. He was a little angry last week, and so this week hopefully we get a little happier, JJ.
And John Chansey checks in and says anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Couldn't agree more. I've working on that replay article. I think, John, since I told you April or May. I'm seeing if I can drag it out to August. Casey, no show on July 28th. I will be on vacation in JJ's neck of the woods, and instead of trying to figure out how to work computers, which we can't even do from home tonight. I thought we'd just take the week off and recharge our batteries. Casey, give the people some thanks while I close it out.
Yeah, thanks so much to everyone in the Facebook group, especially Nelson Wilhite for all his help and support, everyone on Seldom Used Reserve, Sluggo Podcast, and each and every one of you who likes, listens, and shares and participates. And thanks to John Chansey and everybody who chimed in tonight. Thanks to Palk. Once again, 5 Foot Nothin, 100 Nothin. On behalf of Marty, Seldom Used Reserve Coleman, I mumbled that one. On behalf of Marty, Seldom Used Reserve Coleman, I am Casey the Beef Cregan. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Sluggo.
It was a long one, Beef.
I think we're done here.